Hello everyone, this is OSK, and today I have the first meta snapshot for Spellbreak with patch 1.1. I'll cut right to the chase. This meta snapshot is designed to build off my previous tier lists I developed in patch 1.0 to briefly place them in rank of viability based on all three modes of the Spellbreak Battle Royale. I know it's been a while since patch 1.1 was released, and I'm sorry for the latency, but hopefully you'll find this snapshot acceptable, and ideally I'll have a snapshot out every single patch less than a week after it drops. That will be my goal for this series, but we've been talking too much. It's time to get right into the meta snapshot for patch 1.1. Patch 1.1 saw with it the official release of the Chronomaster Rune, along with quite a few bug fixes that largely fixed desync and lack of registered hits, otherwise known as no-regs. This gave us quite a bit of time to determine the viability of Chronomaster, and that will be discussed later on in the video. These rankings were determined by combining their viability in both solo queue and in documented competitive events, and will provide you the most accurate picture of the current meta in Spellbreak patch 1.1. Getting started with the classes of Spellbreak, there were a few changes with the introduction of Shadow Step into the game and its ability to dash while also providing brief invisibility, giving Toxicologists a lot more reliable bursting capabilities, making it rise to the rank of the top of A tier. Between the three modes, solos, duos, and squads, it outshines the most in solos and contends for the strongest class in a solo environment, rivaled by Conduit. As the number of teammates increases, the less viable it becomes, as the addition of more and more fireballs severely limits the use of the skill Vanishing Mists, making Toxicologists suffer. Additionally, we did see quite a few top performances from Stone Shapers in the Element Phoenix Finals. Stone Shaper's ability to constantly regenerate up to 20 armor, coupled with Stone's absurd grounded hitbox and damage, propels it up to B tier when played optimally, allowing for proper lockdown of an entire area in smaller circles. Additionally, it is one of the best gauntlets to start a surprise engagement with, as the Focus Mana Stone Shaper build can consistently hit well over 50 damage per shot. However, it still possesses the unfortunate perk of being completely grounded, allowing it to be easily kited in the early and mid game. We'll have to see how Stone Shapers adapt in the next patch to raise their class any higher than B tier. Next, we'll talk about the Offhand gauntlets for patch 1.1. This is a new section I added after all the tier lists were done. This will mostly be based on the wide viability of each gauntlet on each class, along with a few perks each gauntlet can provide to a class, and I'll provide a brief explanation for each gauntlet's position. We're going to begin in C tier, where I have placed Wind. Wind is a decent close-range tool to get some quick, reliable damage on a low opponent. Additionally, its sorcery, Tornado, does possess a very effective lockdown tool with its aerial suction. The Tornado can also be combined with Fire, Toxic, and Lightning for a variety of extra effects. Its damage does drop off at longer ranges quite quickly though, so this does limit its effective range. Also, the damage each interaction of Tornado does is quite low, as the only noteworthy damaging effect is a Dragonfire Tornado Explosion, and landing this is very unreliable. Moving up to B tier, we have Toxic and Stone. Starting with Toxic, the main benefit comes when paired with the Pyromancer class, as Dragonfire is quite an effective combo to start fights with, and to cover a large area with AoE. Toxic also possesses Corrosion, which provides some extra DPS on armored opponents. Its only effective range for big damage is close range, much like Wind, but the potential DPS is much higher, and couple that with a very useful elemental interaction with Fire and Lightning makes B tier a home for Toxic. Moving on to Stone, it possesses a lot of the same problems as its class, being that it is easily kited and avoided altogether. The Boulderfall sorcery also possesses much lower damage in AoE with the base gauntlet, lowering its effectiveness. Stone's damage potential is still very large given the right circumstance, but it is difficult to find that circumstance a lot of the time to make it overly reliable. Couple that with an okay elemental interaction with Fire and you have yourself a B tier placement. Up in A tier, we're going to have the Lightning Gauntlet. I won't spend too much time with this. It's basically a better Wind that's a little harder to hit at close range. It has very little damage fall off at long range and is very reliable for cleanup damage. Its main use, however, is going to be the Lightning Strike sorcery, allowing for a quick stun into high damage combo. This use of lightning is really strong when used correctly, and is only countered by the Harmony talent and Tundra from the Frostborn class, making it very useful for most engagements in the game. The Harmony talent is actually the only reason I have placed it in A tier, as it does make the usefulness of the gauntlet drop significantly. Thankfully, not everyone runs Harmony, so in general, I find that A tier is the proper placement for this amazing gauntlet. Last in S tier, we have Frost and Fire, and this should surprise nobody. Frost is very clearly the best mid to long range option for burst damage, and high quality aim makes this gauntlet an absolute nightmare to go up against. While it does have some lackluster elemental interactions, the spell's damage and projectile speed make this gauntlet a favorite among the best players and myself as well. Not to mention that Flash Freeze provides some nice defense against half of the spells in the game. Now moving on to fire, this gauntlet possesses some of the most reliable close to mid-range damage in the game. It is the perfect counterpart to Frost in terms of effective range and defense. The spell provides decent damage at a good cast speed, the fireball projectile has a decently sized hitbox, and it also possesses with it some of the most favorable elemental interactions in the game. Dragonfire is the most common, but it also cancels out ice lances, eats through toxic sprays, eats through lightning bolts, boosts the power of boulders, and it's a lot. Not to mention its Flame Wall sorcery can be used to both damage players and block Toxic and Frost, so it's pretty useful all around. That completes the Offhand Gauntlet section. It was a bit of a longer section, but the others will be much shorter since I've already gone over them. Moving on to talents, literally nothing has changed in terms of balance. However, I did shift a few standings around based on what I'm seeing in public lobbies as well as tournament results. Namely, Dexterity has proven itself to be more useful than a mere C tier placement. It was the top of C tier the last time I ranked it, but I now feel comfortable moving it up to B tier. It is always useful as a tool to increase your vertical mobility and mana efficiency, and it truly belongs in B tier as a closet pick for an extra 1 cost talent. I have also dropped tracking from B tier to C tier. Honestly, while it works great in theory, I'm just not seeing enough of it in-game at the moment, implying that there are better options being taken even in a squad environment where this rune should shine. We'll get some more clarity in patch 1.2, I'm sure, but for now its lack of use will drop it to C tier. Other than adjusting Harmony to the top of A tier due to tournament results and frequency of use, I have also brought up Escapist from F tier to D tier. I honestly think it was a mistake to mark it as completely useless like I did with Finders Keepers. It does have its minimal uses and makes you harder to hit with certain spells once the speed boost comes into effect, so it definitely deserves at least D tier. I can't see myself ranking it any higher in good faith though, so unless we see some balance changes in the future, I will keep Escapist in D tier. Your best talents are still likely going to be Runic Fluency, Fervor, and Recovery for the moment. Lastly, in the Rune section, like I mentioned at the beginning, patch 1.1 delivered Chronomaster into the game, and we have had a solid chance to gauge its viability in the current meta. Unfortunately, it did not have the greatest showing. While it is useful in some niche early game scenarios, it is not enough to get it out of C tier. I am, however, comfortable with placing it above Invisibility due to its higher versatility in both the Conduit and Tempest classes in the middle of combat. Additionally, I have decided to move Spring Step from A tier to the Promised Land of S tier. While it is still behind Dash in the placements, its versatility in virtually every class cannot be understated. A big strength of Spring Step is its cooldown. It has the lowest cooldown of all the runes across all rarities, only matched by Dash in the epic and legendary rarities. It also possesses the crucial trait of Momentum Carry, used to travel further with Levitate, and this makes it quite a useful and efficient positioning tool. Honestly, the strength of its low cooldown was enough for me to propel the rune to S tier, as you almost don't even need to worry about being dove on without having a counter movement option, so S tier it goes. Before we end this section, I do want to comment on Shadow Step. What limits this rune in particular is its cooldown. It possesses twice the cooldown of Dash and Shadow Step at Legendary Rarity, and the Invisibility trait is a poor trade-off unless you're running Toxicologist. Toxicologist is what really saves the viability of this rune due to its ability to proc Outbreak. Every other class will almost always prefer Dash or Spring Step, and until this changes, Shadow Step will remain in A tier. Well guys, that's going to do it for your Spellbreak meta snapshot of patch 1.1. Please let me know how I did in the comments below, and feel free to like the video if you agree with these rankings. A lot of time and thought from both the casual and competitive side of things went into constructing this list, so I do hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to subscribe and do the YouTube thing, follow the socials and the Twitch channel in the box below. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you all out there.